Isaiah Rodgers' story is one that uncomfortably provokes the question of how much control someone can have over their legacy. Welcome to the Everyman series on the Locked On Vikings podcast.
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It's 2002 in the Tampa, Florida area. A 4-year-old child points to the TV with a football game on it, and he tells his parents, "I want to do that." He's adamant. He looks them directly in the eye and speaks with a conviction that, despite how young he is, convinces his parents to go all in on the thing. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast, where we're always trying to learn something new. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Isaiah Rodgers has had a very up and down journey to get to the point where he is at now. This journey, most of it is told very, very well in an article that's my primary source for this episode of the Everyman series by Stephen Holder that was written in 2020 when Isaiah Rodgers was a rookie on the Colts. I will link it in the show notes. Please yell at me if I forget. But that journey and telling it honestly is what the Everyman series is all about. This is where we go over the backstories and the journey to the Vikings for all of these players. So if you're here to find out if Isaiah Rodgers can play corner, or if he's going to win a position battle with Mekhi Blackmon or whatever, that's not really what we're talking about today. Instead, we pick up in Tampa, Florida, where a young toddler thinks he's going to be an NFL football player. There are a lot of young toddlers who think they're going to be NFL football players across the nation. They're not all right about that, but it sure is remarkable when they are. Football will be Isaiah Rodgers' life, which is kind of funny because he's a pretty late bloomer. And when he even is first going out for high school football, he is not 5 feet tall. He's a little kid, but that never stops him. His father, Craig, encourages him to never let his size get in the way. And so when it's time, all the older cousins are over, he wants to play in roughhouse with the older kids. By the way, one of those older kids, Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie, future NFL player. And he's not afraid to go rough it up with the older, bigger, stronger kids. It is sort of this dog mentality. Don't underestimate me because I'm small. A recurring theme of this entire story is going to be the fact that Isaiah Rodgers doesn't get to choose what his legacy is. You simply don't get to control how the public sees you. And if you're familiar with Isaiah Rodgers in the news at all, you know where this is headed, but we'll get there when we get there. First things first, we have to go to high school football. Now, Isaiah Rodgers wants to play cornerback like his cousin did, but he's too short to do it. High school is nah, we're putting you in JV receiver, and let's see if you grow up a little bit. And yeah, he's going to be a good receiver. He is this blazing fast kid. More on that later. But he wants to play cornerback. It's the summer before his sophomore year where everything in his life changes and his trajectory will never be the same. First off, he decides to transfer to a high school called Blake where he thinks he's going to get a better opportunity. He's grown a little bit, not enough maybe to be seen as, a big tall corner or anything like that, but he's at least a reasonable enough size where he thinks there's a better argument. But the second thing happens that summer, and it's tragic. As Isaiah Rodgers would tell you the story, he's at a friend's house, and his dad's going to come pick him up when they're done. He says, "Hey, I'm on the way," and Isaiah texts him back, "I'm having some fun. Can you come pick me up later?" So Craig says, "No problem." He goes over to his girlfriend at the time's house. And from here, I'm going to be really vague. Something happens. I'm not going to get into any of the reported details from what happens between this and the end of this incident with Craig Rodgers, but it ends with the police getting involved and a bullet to the chest. Craig Rodgers will pass away before his son goes to 10th grade. And Isaiah blames himself pretty immediately. There's a lot that's going to go through your head when something like this happens, and it's nothing that I can ever possibly understand or relate to. But as it is told, there's kind of two main emotions. One, it's my fault. I said, come pick me up later. If I had just, let him pick me up when he said he was going to pick me up, none of this would have happened. Not to mention the sort of inner irony, like a layer under that, where you were having fun with your friend and you didn't want to see your dad, and now your dad is gone. And so that's a completely irrational thing, but it's exactly the kind of irrational guilt that would strike you in a situation like that. The second thing is he's now the man of the house. His mom tells him that. He has to be a rock. He has to look after his mother, his two sisters, and he's 15 years old. It's a lot to put on a kid that young. And he puts it on himself as strongly as anybody else does. So he doesn't really show it. You don't see him grieve. He gets stoic. He gets really quiet. He sort of recedes within himself. There are a lot of instances of grief in these Everyman series stories. A lot of people have experienced loss, and sometimes grief and pain can propel you to accomplish what you accomplish. Sometimes that energy just gets channeled into the nearest thing, and for some people, the nearest thing is football. If you want a more high-profile example of that, look at Adrian Peterson, whose experiences with loss and pain continued to fuel him throughout his entire career, and I would argue color some of the later decisions he made in life as well. But for Rodgers, that chip on his shoulder gets a little bit stronger. There's also that thing, that advice that your dad gives you. I think it becomes a little more intense when it's from your late father, if that makes sense. Now that's part of the way that you can remember somebody, is by remembering the impact that they had on you, and to kind of internalize it and calcify it. And I think it's one of the beautiful things that our brains do during the process of grief, to remember the people that we love. But this is not a fully mentally healthy teenager dealing with the death of his father at a certain point. It sort of goes from stoicism to just full-on depression. And he goes to his mom at one point and says, hey, there's no point in going on here. Dad's gone, the world is empty, and I don't want to do anything. So therapy. This is another pro therapy message. Go to therapy. On the field, he also doesn't really get what he thinks he's going to get. So this sort of plays into the way that he is feeling, where he goes to Blake High School and all the coaches are like, nah, dude, you're not playing corner. You're too short. So once again, a book is kind of judged by its cover. And boy, is there a futility to that. You can't control anything. You can't keep your dad alive. You can only do so much to help your family because you're still a minor. You can't play the position you want to play. All you can hope for is that you grow more, which he never will. It's understandable to feel pretty helpless, especially as a kid in that context. But there is one coach at that school, he's a defensive assistant at the time, who understands that he wants to play cornerback and sees the vision. And it turns out that coach is actually going to kind of change his life. That'll be next on Locked On Vikings. Today's episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by Skylight Frames. It can be a great gift for the type A dad in your life. Father's Day is coming up. Grab a Skylight Calendar. Look, if you are part of one of those families where you miss stuff all the time or where things get double booked, oh my God, how am I going to get a ride to this when somebody else needs a ride to that? And the Skylight Calendar can help you with that. It's a big 15-inch HD screen that has everything. It syncs with your Google Calendar or Apple Outlook or whatever you use and displays everything that's going on at that certain moment. Big, can't miss it. So everybody knows what's going on and everybody can stay organized. You can color code it based on person or based on activity or based on the kind of thing, like however you want to do it, and organize your life and your family's life in a perfectly displayed, available, and visible way. Right now, Skylight is offering our listeners $30 off of their 15-inch calendars by going to skylightcal.com/NFL. Go to skylightcal.com/NFL for $30 off of your 15-inch calendar. That's skylightcal.com/NFL. Dwayne Thomas is now the head coach at Blake High School, but he was a defensive assistant at the time when Isaiah Rodgers was campaigning and being denied the opportunity to play cornerback. Dwayne Thomas's kid was also a player on the team and very good friends with Rodgers, so he would end up carpooling with the Thomases to school every day. As the routine went, the Thomases would show up to Isaiah Rodgers' house. He'd be sitting there out on the stoop or whatever. He'd come to the car and they would go. But one day he wasn't there. So Dwayne Thomas goes to the door and finds Isaiah Rodgers sitting by the door, full on snot crying. The emotional toll of everything that he had been through finally breaks out of him like the Hoover Dam. And they will spend hours sitting and talking through everything. That's the kind of experience that creates a lifelong relationship and is, I think, far more important than anything that's going to happen on the football field here. Through that conversation, Dwayne Thomas sees what he calls a certain defiance in Isaiah Thomas. And I think it's that chip on the shoulder. You tell me I'm small, I'm going to prove you wrong. You tell me I can't play corner, I'm going to prove you wrong. You tell me I can't be the man of the house, I'm going to prove you wrong. He calls it like a little brother mentality. Anyways, it's not until the next season that Isaiah Rodgers finally does get to play cornerback. His first game, he gets a big pick six. The rest is history. And he plays well enough. It's another one of these situations where the tape is good enough to get onto the desk of a bunch of college scouts, but you're like 5'9" and $140, and no big D1 program is really ever going to take a second look at you. This is where UMass comes in. When you are a University of Massachusetts, you're a weird kind of offshoot program, you're a smaller program, and you're off the beaten path, you kind of have to look for these players that are a slightly strange package. Somebody that's a little too small for the role, a little too slow for the role. Somebody who is, has some sort of deal breaker, doesn't meet some measurement threshold, but is really, really good. That's where you find your really, really good players. Steve Costello is the guy that ends up scouting and recruiting Isaiah Rodgers to UMass. He's also the cornerbacks coach, and he is assigned to that area. So he finds this really good corner. Yeah, he's short, but we're going to give him a shot. So off to UMass we go. Again, I think he's 142 when we start, but he plays well enough to earn the start in his very first year and earn the respect of a lot of his opponents. Unfortunately, during his time at the University of Massachusetts, they aren't good. It is not successful. They will go 4-8 one year, and everyone, including Steve Costello, will be fired. The frustration mounts on everybody when you have a losing season. I mean, these guys, of course, they're born and bred competitors, right? And considering that a lot of them come from these prestige high schools that go, 10-0 every year, that also kind of makes it hard when you get to college and suddenly you're 4-8. It's a tough pill to swallow. And again, Isaiah Rodgers goes to his mom and says, I can't do this anymore. he texts his mom a picture of packed bags and says, "I'm coming home." And his mom is like, "Absolutely not. You are not coming home. You went there to get a degree. You are getting that degree. Unpack those bags and get your butt in the classroom." Beautiful motherhood moment, right? Get in the classroom. What are you doing? Pretty good point. So he's like, "Okay, I'll graduate." So he will jam his classes and actually get his degree in 3.5 years, which is pretty impressive considering that one of the other things hurting Isaiah Rodgers' recruitment was that he didn't have great grades coming out of high school. So there's a very much a, you can do anything you put your mind to kind of deal. You didn't put your mind to it in high school, but look what you can do in college when you do put your mind to it. And he graduates, and so now it's time for the NFL draft. The timing here, however, is pretty bad because if you are really good at doing your math, you will know that the kid born in 1998 is going to be around draft age in 2020. So things are going to be a little unprecedented. He won't get a combine invite. 5'9" corner who's, about the size of a Yorkshire Terrier from UMass, not going to get a combine invite. It's particularly devastating in the COVID year where you don't have a normal pro day. You don't have those other showcases to set yourself apart. And countless prospects that maybe would have been really good, maybe would have been the small school guy of that year, go completely unheralded, forgotten, and never get a chance in the NFL because their pro day got canceled because of the pandemic. This absolutely happened a ton, and we'll never know who it was. Isaiah Rodgers refuses to let that be him. Again, there is that defiance. This won't be me. This won't define me. So he puts together a virtual pro day, very notably runs a 4.28 at that virtual pro day, sends it to everybody, and gets drafted. 211th overall. Tears and hugs at the draft party. He's going to be an Indianapolis Colt. He'll even make the Pro Football Writers Association all-rookie team as a return man that first year. But otherwise, the first few years of his career are relatively uneventful until you get to the thing that I know you're thinking about when you hear the name Isaiah Rodgers and what he is synonymous with now. And it really is going to put to the test his ability to decide what does and doesn't define him. That'll be next on Locked On Vikings. In a twist of brutal irony, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you're not an NFL player, if you're an NFL player, please don't listen to this part. But if you're not an NFL player, why don't you go take a look at what they've got for the last couple games of the NBA Finals, the Stanley Cup, and even NFL futures. You can now get over-unders on J.J. McCarthy's yardage. You can get 4,000 or 4,500 yard props. You can, of course, get win totals, Vikings over under 8.5. So if you think they're going to have a winning season, you can get that right now at FanDuel.com. Whatever you think you can win, put $5 on it. Because if you go to FanDuel.com, you sign up, you put your first $5 bet down. If that bet wins, you get $200 in bonus bets. So be real conservative with that first bet. Go find something you're super, super, super confident in. And if you win, you get $200 in bonus bets for just a $5 risk. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. We're all human. We've all made mistakes, maybe pissed somebody off. Maybe we've done something that really hurt somebody, offended somebody, or maybe just wronged somebody in a more indirect sense. And maybe that person is mad at us. It happens. It's unfortunate if that thing becomes the thing they remember you for. Maybe something embarrassing you did in high school, got you a nickname you didn't want or something like that. Or maybe it's something like, you once accidentally texted the group chat the Grink, and now everybody asks if the Grink is there. Maybe it's more innocent. But whatever it is, I think it's a fairly relatable feeling to say, I really regret this. I wish I could take it back and make everyone forget that I did that. In that way, that helplessness to do that is the kind of thing that Isaiah Rodgers seems to be pretty hell-bent on overturning. You're going to judge me because I'm small? No, you're not. I'm going to play corner. You're going to judge me because I'm from a smaller school and UMass? No, you're not. Here's my virtual pro day. I'm going to get drafted. You're going to judge me because my grades were bad? No, you're not. I'm graduating college in 3.5 years. Anything you look at Isaiah Rodgers and judge him for, he's going to prove you wrong out of a sense of like spite and that little brother chip on your shoulder that only a kid who constantly roughhouses with Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie, who's 10 years older, like that's the kind of guy we're dealing with here. But he will make a mistake. It's 2023 it's 2022 when the story breaks. He'll be suspended for the entire 2023 season over a gambling scandal. This is not an action I'm going to defend. He screwed up. As the accusation goes, he is accused of placing over 100 bets, I think is how it is, via an associate. So somebody places the bets for him, including bets on the Colts and on the NFL as a whole. This is expressly against the rules. Isaiah Rodgers makes no attempt to deny it. He takes full responsibility and accepts the consequences. This 2022 scandal is the biggest gambling scandal in NFL history. There have been other suspensions over gambling. There have been bigger players who have been suspended over gambling. There was a big one going on actually in 1969 leading up to the Super Bowl between the Vikings and Chiefs. The Chiefs had a whole gambling thing going on that sort of quietly went away right before the game. But this is the first time in NFL history that I can find that many players across many teams are suspended for gambling all at the same time. You had Calvin Ridley the year before, and then this is like 6 more players did it. And it became, I think I did a show even here about it that was like this, or maybe it was just a Twitter Tuesday question or something about how sports betting has permeated the league in such a, irreversible way that now you need to have this sort of this flashpoint where the line is set and somebody is made an example of. Isaiah Rodgers is the guy who is made an example of. There are other players in this, notably a few Detroit Lions. Jameson Williams is a big name, and Isaiah Rodgers is the name associated with this because he's the one that placed the most bets. They were, for the most part, $25, $50 bets. I mean, this is not a guy putting $100,000 on the Colts losing and then sandbagging the game. This isn't that kind of thing. But it's more just the impropriety of it all, the conflict of interest of it all, and just the flagrant ignoring of the rules. Because of the volume of the bets, Isaiah Rodgers is like the headline. It's Isaiah Rodgers, Jameson Williams, because he's on everyone's fantasy team, 4 others suspended. That's how the headlines go. He is the one named. And no matter who you are, what you've proven, or what you've been through, once you're synonymous with a scandal, you're that person. We see it all the time throughout the history of like American society and culture, right? If you are Monica Lewinsky, you're now synonymous with one other thing, and it ain't going to law school. Or for a sports example, Jen Sturger, similar idea, right? Jen Sturger as a sports reporter, as somebody who tried to make a career as a sideline reporter, that's not what you're known for anymore. Because you were part of that scandal. And those people were victims of the scandal, not even perpetrators of it, right? Maybe you think he deserves it. He certainly deserves something, right? Sitting out a year, missing out on all those game checks. Maybe you think it's enough or not enough or too much. That's up to you. But the movie keeps going. The world keeps turning. For Isaiah Rodgers, he takes this on the chin. He takes, again, publicly full responsibility. He doesn't look at this as, they've made an example of me, or I'm a victim. None of that. He pays his time. And as he watches the 2023 season from afar, he sees the league completely continue on without him. He sees the Colts continue on without him. He sees the whole world keep turning. To make matters worse, the Colts that year had drafted Julius Brents, and because they have Julius Brents available, they will cut Isaiah Rodgers in the wake of this whole scandal. So not only is he suspended for a year, he's a free agent now. So he has to go convince a team to sign him, in addition to all the things he's always been fighting, like his size. He has to convince a team to sign him as the radioactive name attached to this scandal. You have to go to somebody who does not know you at all and say, I promise I won't do it again, and have them believe you. That's a really hard thing to do when millions of dollars and a whole bunch of careers are at stake. Really, really tough sell. Oh, and by the way, I'm short. I'm 5'10", $170, and I'm mostly going to be a kick returner for you. Would you like to get embroiled in my scandal? Like, it's such a tough sell. And that's why he's so grateful to Nick Sirianni for taking the chance on him. And boy, what a time it is to join the Philadelphia Eagles. He'll actually compete really well and earn a role from scrimmage, a bigger one than he ever had in Indianapolis with the Eagles. He'll experience an injury here or there. He's been banged up sometimes in fairly insignificant ways, but in this particular way, there's also these two young guys in Philadelphia that kind of take over the secondary by the time we get to the postseason, right? Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, these guys are going crazy, and Isaiah Rodgers sort of falls to the wayside and remains just a rotational player and special teamer. So he plays out his 1-year deal. He'll win his ring. He's got a tattoo about it. And honestly, that's where the credits roll, if you ask me. I always talk about them, if you made a movie about his life, and this is one of those that I think could really be a good one. But if you made the movie about his life, hoisting that Lombardi trophy in, Kelly Eagle, or not Kelly, in, that Jade Eagles green, that's where we fade to black here. We have now overcome it again. Screw you. Now I'm not the guy who did the betting scale. Now I'm the guy with a ring. Kiss it, right? Like, screw you. I'm 5'10". Kiss the ring. But the world always keeps turning past that. We don't get neatly wrapped up stories. Isaiah Rodgers can go for more because what he has not been yet is a true bona fide starter. He's never been that in the league. He's been a rotational player. He's been a special teamer. He's been a spot duty kind of guy, but he's never been a true blue, I am the cornerback, this is my side, and I got you all day kind of dude. Well, guess what he has an opportunity to do now in Minnesota? To prove everybody wrong for the umpteenth time. Because there's plenty of people, myself included, that look at that signing and say, really, that guy's your starter? He's never done that before. Are we sure that's a good idea? And he has another chance to defy it. To say, no, you don't know me, and I am going to show you what I'm about. For whatever it's worth, he has been the unquestioned cornerback 2 in OTAs and minicamp. He's the guy. Brian Flores had all kinds of great things to say about him as well. Somebody that Brian Flores was in on at UMass when he was coming out and was actually interested in him in the COVID year when he was the head coach over at Miami. So we'll see if that was all bluster or not. But, I always like to reflect on how we got here, but then look at what we have at stake. And what we have at stake for Isaiah Rodgers is actually kind of this crazy crossroads in his career. If he plays well here, this could mean a big jump in the money that he makes. It could mean totally forgetting the betting scandal that he got embroiled in a couple years ago, right? You get a ring, you get a starting job, nobody cares anymore. You have way papered over that with your play. Much worse scandals have been papered over with good play in the NFL. I'm sure you can think of a couple examples without trying very hard. But if he struggles and flames out and is just kind of a rotational guy anymore, this is going to be the first thing you ever get when you Google him for the rest of his life. This will be the legacy. This is his chance to really, realize what he's always wanted. And I think there's something so cool and beautiful about that he's really going to get that opportunity. And not in a way that you say, oh, well, it's an opportunity to make the team for player number 89, the rookie minicamp tryout guy. This is real. This is as good of an opportunity as he's ever going to get in the league. And despite the one mistake that he made, he's a guy that I'm big time rooting for. I'll talk to y'all tomorrow. And as always, Skull.